Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again with some pretty broken shit. Not particularly broken, but broken in the form of scaling and the end result. But we're talking about cold snap and then, of course, cheese boot stacking. Cheese boots I'm referring to as Ralakesh, which are pretty overpowered as we have slightly discussed in a previous build, but I've gone slightly more all out with some of the very powerful uses for them this character this time around. Probably just the last time I'm going to do that. I was just going to give myself one more big use of Ralakesh boots before I move on, and then try and scale in less overpowered ways, because they really are pretty damn overpowered and out of line, I think. And I mean, I'll talk about that when we get to the character portion of the build, I'd say. But yeah, you know me, I don't like to do things that feel a bit too over the top, and I have a feeling they're going to get nerfed. Who knows what GG are ever going to do, but you would think these things just aren't the way something should be. Anyway, I digress. We are playing Cold Snap here. As you can see, big graspy hands coming out of the ground. That is a Cold Snap microtransaction, and this skill is actually pretty fucking snappy at the moment. The new Cold Snap of Power is very tasty indeed. It has 10 base crit, it has a bunch of damage to begin with, it has a decent area, it can be used by Spell Cascade and thus Awoken Spell Cascade, and then the only real problem you have to fix is using it multiple times, because it has a cooldown that can be bypassed with consuming power charges. So if you constantly generate power charges with power charge on crit or other sources, then you can constantly use this skill, and it's just pure profit from there, because it is a very powerful beginning for a skill. Like I said, that 10 crit just straight up solves crit super easily with however you want to scale your crit. In this case, we are power charge stacking, and then, like I said, because of the Ralakesh boots, we are stacking everything. So I've got 10 power charges, 10 frenzy charges, 11 brutal charges, and 11 endurance charges. So we do have a lot of extra cast speed from the frenzies, we do have a lot of extra crit and more damage from the power charges, still got some good defensiveness from the endurance, and then of course 11 brutal charges is 33% chance to deal triple damage. So with this setup, I thought initially I would probably go occultist just for cold snap and some void battery action, but as I got to thinking about the whole charge stacking situation and how heavily I wanted to do some charge stacking, and I meant like all charges and lots of them, I decided it was better to do a Scion, so that I could just basically travel all the way around the tree and make maximum use of the charges and of the boots. So it is a Scion. It's got a very weird travel-based tree, but it kind of works. And the end result is basically actually a build where you can put anything into it. Like, this is a completely generic passive tree, has almost nothing specific to any skill, and that's why I've also got Stormbrand in the build, because it was there to help generate power charges, so power charge on crit, and then just keep my power charges up so that my cold snap never runs out. But when I did that, I realized that my Stormbrand also does a bunch of damage, given that the tree is fully generically built for pretty much any spell right now. And then I attached a 4-link to my Stormbrand and put him in essence-based gloves to make it like a pseudo 5-link. And then the end result there is that my Stormbrand also deals something like 10 to 20 million damage, just as an afterthought. And then the cold snap itself is probably dealing something like 100 million. So we have what is a setup and a sort of template for pretty much anything that could be fairly overpowered with void batteries and Ralakesh and all this charge stacking. But I have chosen to do cold snap because it's one of the new fancy things. I don't think I've ever actually played a pure cold snap build, but it wasn't really possible back in the day without this new cold snap anyway. So as you can see, there's also this other MTX, I think it's Oblivion, which just kind of looks like, I don't know, light blue puddles of water, but it has a much more accurate representation of our area, because if you stack all of this area, all these charges, sorry, you can get a lot of area with the new charms and the new mods off of them, and that's what the area actually looks like. This area with the grasping hands is not at all representative of our area. It's because the MTX doesn't scale with area for whatever reason, so the hands don't get any bigger, but the space between them kind of does with the spell cascade. So it's kind of hard to tell what your overlap will be with this MTX, as opposed to either the default or other MTXs for cold snap. So as you can see, even with this other MTX, there's this one which is, I think, Blight. It actually turns into like almost a fire cluster thing. You can tell a bit better about the overlap, but it's also still not great, because the actual overlap is like the Blight AoE thing underneath the fire. So it's a bit weird, but long story short, with lots of area and spell cascade, you can actually get some good overlaps on this skill and have it hitting multiple times. That's why it can also be quite strong. So with this one here, you should be able to see that there can be some overlap potential. If the boss is big enough, you can overlap 5 times. If it's not big enough and you position it well enough, you can overlap 3 times. I think with more area, if I chose to invest into even more area, I might be able to have 5 overlaps regardless of boss size. I've yet to fully experiment with maximum area like that, but I think that might indeed be possible. So what you've got is a pretty powerful caster build, but like I said, with this sort of a setup, I think you could probably make almost any caster this powerful. It's just very fun. Cold Snap though, I've been told that Cold Snap was a lot of fun to play, so I decided to make a pretty big version of it, and yes, it is a very fun skill indeed once it gets fully rolling, so can highly recommend that. Probably won't need another video for this because we've basically cleared all content, so let me just go ahead and show you what the build looks like, and on top of that, talk about these busted ass boots. Alright, so we have level 94, last unethical boot use, Scion. And I am, of course, referring to the Ralakesh Impatience boots, which I guess I'll talk about in just a second. But the spell I'm using is Cold Snap. Ignore the Val Cold Snap thing. I'm not using that at all. It's just Cold Snap of power. So like I said, a bunch of crit, bunch of damage, bunch of damage to start with, gives some power charge on crit, has some good area, and then has that cooldown that needs to be bypassed. Actually, one thing I didn't mention is it also has a very good cast time. So that's part of why it feels so good and is so powerful, because it's like actual cast speed is pretty damn quick. So you can scale it pretty nicely. Like I said, with this cooldown though, it's kind of shit, right? But then bypass that with enough power charges and you got yourself a very powerful skill. Now you do still have to generate charges, so Ralakesh doesn't fix that for anything like this or Flicker Strike, etc. You still have to generate charges to be able to use them. So even though we're set at maximum, you still need power charge on crit somewhere, so the skill itself, the power charge on crit in our setup, that type of thing. So I have gone pretty all out with this to make sure that it is about as good as it can be for the last time I'm going to do it, I think. You know, who knows, maybe I'll do something with them again, but for now, yeah, I feel like it might be the last time. And let me go ahead and talk about why they are so good. So just open up my password tree real quick. Yep, okay. So Ralakesh, they set you at max endurance, frenzy, and power. As we've mentioned before, basically that just means that all of your charges are at maximum and you get the benefit of all of those charges being at maximum. So you get, in this case, 10 power charges, and then that's maximum at all times, and you get the buffs from all of those 10 power charges. In this case, it's going to be a lot of crit. It's going to be a lot of crit multi as well, extra damage too, but on top of that, we have things like power charge on crit, so 40% more damage there. But we also have things like inner conviction, 3% more power. So currently that means that power charges give me 70% more power. More damage, sorry, per power for the total of power charges. But the reason that they're so overpowered and busted right now is because they basically take away the downsides of other forms of scaling charges, on top of being an actual decent boot. So it's like, you know, 30 movement speed, a couple of resists. It's not that bad, not that much of a brick for a boot slot. If it had like nothing on it, it'd be maybe more understandable. But basically, the real big thing is that you have maximum endurance and frenzy as well. So if you have maximum endurance charges, you know, and then you put on a belt like this, you now have triple damage brutal charges instead. So I've got 11 endurance, meaning I have 11 brutal. I just need a way of generating those brutal charges. But then I'm also still using 11 max endurance. So there's no opportunity cost here whatsoever of putting on this belt like there used to be, right? You'd put on brutal charge belt and you'd have the difficult choice of, do I want to sacrifice my endurance for the triple damage charges? And it would be a bit of a trade-off, right? Now there's no opportunity cost there whatsoever. It's just like pure profit. But on top of that, you also have the things that would have otherwise been disabled. So Inner Conviction's another actually interesting, really powerful one. Gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. So that was a pretty popular one to be doing in a void battery or power charge stacking build. You'd emphasize your power charges and you get rid of your ability to get frenzies, but because you're getting so many more powers than frenzies, it makes sense. But now you pretty much have to be locked into this setup where you are doing Inner Conviction with 3% more and then getting power charges instead of frenzy. Doesn't matter because you can grab a badge of the Brotherhood. We still have 10 max frenzies and we've got all 10 max frenzies thanks to this as well. So this setup of triple damage with Inner Conviction and maximum frenzies is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the problem with it is that it's just too good. It removes all choice from like how to scale spells, basically. Like that's the main issue there, because you like for me personally, I think about how I was going to make like my next cast on crit character. I'm like, okay, I'll do this, so maybe I'll do that, and then the thought process leads back to, this is going to be the most powerful thing by far. Why aren't I doing it? I'm an idiot for not doing it. That doesn't feel good. It kind of makes sense, you know, if like crit is the best thing, that's like a general scaling system, one that everyone is fully available to, whereas this is like an obscure method of stacking a whole bunch of things, but it's the best end result and it's like the way you have to go towards it. It just feels bad. So it feels pretty imbalanced, and I'm not a big fan, but obviously it feels very good to play with, and you can be a fan of just having a powerful character. So I'd say get in on this while the getting's good for this league if you really want to feel pretty cracked with a certain build or two, because one of the other things that's really good with this is also precursor rings, which this league there are fuck tons of thanks to Valdo maps. So with this type of build and this type of template, you can actually change it vastly depending on how you build your character with precursor rings. If you really wanted to, you can look up all kinds of different precursor rings, and as you can see, I have all charges at maximum at all times. So every single one of these things you're looking at, just assume it's about 10 times, right? So 10%. 10 fizz damage reduction for your frenzies, 10 movement speed for your frenzies. We got this other one which can have 10 block, 10 attack and cast speed. If you really want, you can stack armor, you can stack evasion, so you can have like, you know, ones that do double armor, double evasion, things like that. In the end, you can build this character a bit more, just slightly different, and you can have like fucking 50,000 evasion or 50,000 armor. You can have a whole bunch of block instead and build like block cap. You can build like full fucking fizz damage reduction like I have kind of. So I've got 44% fizz damage reduction, I think, with my endurance charges, and then on top of that, frenzy here, so 54% pure fizz damage reduction with basically no armor. I then pop my Chaos Golem as well, and that's what we're dealing with, and that leads to a pretty thick character against physical hits. Which honestly isn't that big of a deal in today's world. It feels good against plenty of things, but so much in Path of Exile these days has lots of an elemental factor to it, even during regular mapping as well as uber bossing and stuff. So I'm not particularly thick. Like I can take some good hits, but I certainly can't take lots of the elemental hits, because I've basically just full lopsided focused on the fizz damage reduction, and I've got some attack block otherwise, but nothing crazy. So elemental is still going to be a bit of a problem in this build, because I've gone pretty all out on damage and then like gone a bit more on just fizz damage reduction for some comfort in some types of situations and scenarios. So it's a lot better than nothing, but it's not like the be all end all of survivability out there. So aside from that, Void Battery is very cheap, very easy to get. Badge of the Brotherhood, very cheap, very easy to get. The difficult thing is +1 Ralakesh. So without the +1, we'd instead be at 10 maximum endurance and brutal charges, which is still very good. No big deal. But these by themselves were 20 divines, just with the corrupt on them. Belt, very cheap and easy to get. This thing was like 50C with the zealotry thing. Each of these rings, I allowed myself to go a bit more than my usual budget. So one of these was 3 divines, one of these was like 10 divines, I think. So I think this one was 10, I think this one was 3, just because I'm trying to get my max endurance up. You could instead just do lots of other cool shit on there. You can't go max frenzies or power charges because those are super expensive. So, max frenzy obviously aren't that good for us anyway, but max power charge is a very expensive ticket to go for. Pretty basic chest, though I did get this one from... It's a delve mod. You can apply additional curse. So I bought the chest with these prefixes and then just did my suffixes up after that. The chest itself costs like a divine or 2, I think. It's a delve roll from just delve happens randomly, or a fracture can even happen, which is more expensive. And then also fractured essence gloves. So these were 50C. They can drop fractured essence, as we've established. And then I just used veiled orbs until I got good suffixes and then did some prefix action. And that's what gives me a 5 link for my Stormbrand. So Stormbrand of Indecision, which is the new one, feels pretty fucking fast and very good. Could just be a whole Stormbrand build with these 5 link gloves without even using a fucking 6 link chest. Honestly, it's that good. Power charge on crit, awakened, added lightning, and then conk effect. And then I picked up a Lear cast, so I was just looking for a hat with +1 power charges, but I did need a bit of dexterity, and I wanted more flat life, so Lear cast actually worked out really well. It reduces some damage, it gains some damage, so it's a net positive. And then it's also got this 90% reserve thing, so it fits more auras in. So Herald Vice, Zealotry, and Haste over here. And this thing was 50C, I think. So, lots of helms out there with +1 power charge that you can just customize and choose whatever you want to do with. So for my Ascendancies here, I went with Scion Elementalist and Scion Inquisitor. So I do have 2 golems at the moment, but they're kind of meaningless. They die plenty. I've attached them to like Meat Shield, and they can live for a bit, but a lot of the time they die. I will mention as well that for our endurance charges, or for our brutal charges, the way we gain them is on kill endurance. So we get a lot through the Scion thing over here, Unleash Potential. You get +1 to each charge, and then a bunch of on kill for endurance. But every now and again, we might need to just top ourselves up with a Red Blade Banner and Enduring Cry in the offhand. And then as you can see, that gives us plenty of brutal charges for a while. Whereas the rest are always at maximum. So like I said, I did want to make a Scion just so I can do a tree that does a bit of everything. So it does all the power charge scaling and stuff. It gets me my inner conviction. And then since my charges basically take care of everything, damage, crit multi, all that shit, you can just do whatever you want with the tree. So I chose to travel a lot and get more charges. So I went with max endurances across the board. I went with clusters, and then I did an adorned scaling setup, the 126 one that I've got, with crit multi-gems. So rolled my own crit multis. These things were like 10 to 20C for fractures, and then just vialed them. And as you can see, each one of these is providing about 69 crit multi if it's just a whatever roll. This one here is 73 crit multi, so stack enough of those and you got yourself some seriously penis damage. We are talking, how much crit multi? 760. While specking almost none on the tree. It's pretty much come from power charges and then these jewels. So pretty crazy stuff. Clusters aren't really anything, they're just there to facilitate more gem sockets, and there it is. We also do have a very saucy that which was taken. So this thing cost me 13 divines, 14 divines, I think. The goal here was to get crit per power charge and then area per endurance. Honestly, you could make it a lot cheaper on yourself and remove crit per power charge because we get so much in the end. I started out with this thing before the rest of the scaling because I wanted maximum crit multi, but I get so much crit multi right now that it's probably better off putting some other mod on there like area per power charge so you can have double area instead. But this one in particular has some endurance charge when hit, so that helps with brutal charges and some charge duration. So it's a pretty good one for the 14 divines that I spent. But yeah, you could easily get rid of the crit multi since we get so much everywhere else. I didn't really, plan for having this much in the end, but this is where we land. So this Forbidden Flesh and Flame combo was 1 divine each when I first started this character. The Adorned and stuff was, made myself, and then pretty cheap to put these jewels together yourself. It's just the largest part of the budget is this thing, as good as you want to make it, and then the plus endurance Ralakesh, and then whatever you want to do with precursors. Could be something big, could be nothing. You could maybe not even do precursors, but it'd be a bit of a waste when you've got 10 of each charge, and you can make use of pretty much all of these fucking modifiers. So very powerful stuff, very powerful scaling, and the end result is a pretty saucy build, like I said. And then also went the charge Ascendancy for crit multi per power charge. So my Ascendancy here gives 100 extra crit multi with some mana recover just to ease up my mana when I'm spamming hard, because I do have some regen, but you will run out if you're just spamming, whereas this helps top it up. And then also dual for more area per endurance and chaos resist per endurance. That helps solve my chaos resist and also scale some area. So it's a bit versatile. You can kind of do whatever you want with all these charges. It's a good template for all kinds of shit. But basically, yeah, Cold Snap feels really good, and most spells will probably feel really good in this setup. So do with that information what you will. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys next time.